Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I am Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are breaking down the Minnesota Vikings 3-round mock draft. But before we do that, we have a fun announcement. We have partnered with BetUS, and so if you like to put a couple bucks down on the game that you're watching, click that link down below. They have a fun promotion going on for all first-time players, which is a 125% match for your first three deposits. It's an amazing deal. And so if you like betting on the ponies, which Kentucky Derby is coming up just in about a month, or March Madness is going on right now, or NBA, NHL playoffs are right around the corner, be sure to hit that link down below and get that 125% match on your first three deposits. Also, while you're at it, be sure to like this video and also subscribe to the channel to get notified when we create new content. Trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by the NFL draft, and we are just a couple hundred away. So any help is greatly appreciated. Ryan, let's pull up the offseason moves so far. Obviously, the biggest departure is going to be they've actually had a lot of departures, so to say. But I think they actually defensively have rebounded a decent bit, and we'll get to that here in a second. Losing Kirk Cousins, losing to Neil Hunter as well, I think are two faces of the franchise, I would say, over the past 5 or so years have been those two gentlemen. And so they have both been moving on. They replaced Kirk Cousins with Sam Darnold, which we'll get to in a second. But then they have actually replaced Neil Hunter with Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel. They've also signed Jerry Tillery as well, Jonah Williams from Los Angeles, also Blake Cashman from Houston as well. So they actually have done, I'd say, a decent job on the defensive side of the ball, getting in some good talent. All those players, I think, are going to be day one starters and instantly have improved this overall defense with a Brian Flores-led defense who is uberly aggressive. So I think those are good additions. Offensively, they did lose KJ Osborne to your New England Patriots. They did re-sign Brandon Powell and also signed on Trent Sherfield from Buffalo. That's not as big of a loss, I would say, on the receiver side, just because you're going to have Quinn Jefferson and then Jordan Addison are going to be your two main guys as well. But QB position, though, as of right now, Sam Darnold is the guy, and that's just going to be the talk, I would think, of the Vikings offseason so far. It's why they moved up to the 23rd overall pick with their trade with the Houston Texans, giving up a second-round pick next year and a couple other picks as well. And the Houston Texans moved back to the original 42nd pick. But I'm going to be very curious on what the Vikings end up doing and how they end up moving up. Because right now I could see all 10 teams in front of them staying put and selecting a player that they really like.
Yeah, and they have the capital now, 11-23, a future first, and then some, I think, to get to 3. But if they want to wait till 5 and trade up to jump the Giants, then I think 11-23 would probably suffice for a move like that. Especially if you're jumping the Giants, you're going up with the Chargers, and they need the draft capital, and I think would probably be the most willing to move back of any of the teams. So like that's neither here nor there, but I think they definitely have the capital now, and that's why they make that move up to 23. Is to offer 2 first-round picks this year, so they're not mortgaging multiple years of a rookie quarterback's deal to get up into a range to draft the quarterback that they want.
Yeah, we saw that with the Panthers, and so I'd be curious though, and that's where I think the Chargers potentially could be one. But you're be sitting there with Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze. You just traded off Keenan Allen. You cut Mike Williams. Best receiver right now is Quentin Johnson. That's where I think logically is like, okay, well, no, like we're going to go get another receiver here. For Justin Herbert. Then I look at the Giants. The Giants also need a receiver. Maybe they want to trade back and get 11-23, and then maybe they've already traded away one of their second-round picks. So maybe they trade away their other, but they're moving up to the 23rd overall spot. So maybe that's a possibility. But then let's say they don't do that. The Titans are going to be sitting on Joe Alt. That's there. So now you look at the Falcons. But I wouldn't want to give up 11-23, just move up 3 spots, because then you don't have your next draft pick is going to be 108. So that's where it's going to be very interesting on how Minnesota kind of finagles this. I agree with you if they're going to want to move up, because I don't think maybe they could trade future draft capital with the Falcons or the Bears. But by then, like maybe you just try and wait to see if JJ McCarthy falls to you, foreshadowing. but I think it's very interesting what the Vikings are going to do. It's almost as if like them trading up kind of eliminated some of the leverage I think that they had, because now it's like you're not going to want to move up 3 spots, but then give up your 11th and 23rd pick. You're now picking 100 picks later, all for
Yeah.
the fourth best quarterback in the class. So that's where it's going to be very interesting to see. I almost wonder if they stay put and just kind of they know at 23 at least one of the remaining quarterbacks, and I'm talking like at the top 6, like with Michael Penix, is going to be
Yeah.
available. Maybe you take them. So it's going to be fascinating to kind of go and see what Minnesota does. They're a month away here. Let's see what other moves can be made. But let's move on, though, to their first pick, picking at 11th overall. If you understood what I meant, we did have in our mock draft JJ McCarthy ended up falling to them at 11. I think this is going to be the guy that they end up going with. I do think Michael Penix could potentially be another option just with the way that this offense runs. I think JJ McCarthy has solidified himself to me as a fourth best quarterback in this class. I know we've gone back and forth a little bit. He doesn't have as many pass attempts, doesn't have as many game pressures, so to say, as some of the other top quarterbacks. Pressure games, so to say, as the other top quarterbacks have been in. But I think this is because he was on just a phenomenal Michigan team. I think you go look at individual moments and like his overall body of work. I think JJ McCarthy has the possibility to develop into a good NFL quarterback in the league.
Yeah, and so I was listening to a podcast last night. I believe it was Bootleg Football, and they said a quote, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but it was like the lack of evidence is not evidence of lacking. Basically meaning like just because he doesn't have ample examples of all these throws on tape doesn't mean that he can't do it. It's just that he wasn't asked to do it. And there are examples of him making a lot of really solid NFL type throws, and he made some throws on tape that he's not even going to have to make at the NFL because of how wide the hashes are. And
also how good his receivers are going to be as
well. Well, fair, yeah. Like Roman Wilson was his top receiver, and he has a tight end in next year's class that's going to be a first round pick most likely. But obviously, a lot of things can change. But my biggest thing with JJ is one, the pass attempts and the game experience, especially when you compare him to the Michael Penix, the Bo Nix, the JJ McCarthy's, and even Caleb Williams that's played 3 years of college football versus just 2. They, I think, still see the field a little bit better, especially pre-snap. They just have more in-game reps, especially with the like certain number of pass attempts, or the extra number of pass attempts. Like they just have that experience. But JJ did run a more pro-ready system at a really high level. Obviously, they won a national championship, and like I think if you're going to take a risk on a quarterback, I think JJ is going to be him and, to me, Drake May are the two riskiest prospects here because they're the youngest, they're the least experienced, and they need the most work. And that's not to say everything on JJ McCarthy's tape was not perfect. I still think he struggles to throw go balls and really lead receivers down the sideline. He throws with timing and anticipation really well. It's just getting that ball down the field. He has the arm strength to do it. It doesn't seem to always line up. So like there's definitely some flaws on tape, but he has a lot of really desirable traits for quarterbacks. I think at 6, the Giants would take him. They have another year of Daniel Jones, right? JJ McCarthy can come in and sit. They'll move on from Daniel Jones next year. And so I think if the Vikings really want to take him, they'll probably have to trade up to 5 and get him there. So
yeah, that's right. I think you're just going to have to. Yeah, I mean, the Chargers do have the draft capital, so you could trade up and get 569 for 1123, and then like next year's first, maybe.
Yeah, I did
seems
it.
like a lot, actually.
I actually did that trade in my mock, and it was like 5 for 11 and 23, and then you're swapping your third next year for the Chargers' fourth, like just because like the points were close but not quite enough, so you just added a little bump there.
See, so that's where I just think logically, it's like just with that, I don't see why the Chargers would trade back.
Because they need draft picks. That defense is not good.
I think Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze is going to be significantly more than whatever Like,
Yeah, but if you go look,
drafting.
if you go by my mock, they trade up again with the
No,
Falcons at 8, and they get Rome Odunze.
your
So
mock was horrible though. Go check out Ryan's mock and leave
yeah,
your opinion on what you think of Ryan's mock.
yeah,
So I'm just kidding. I did that for as a teaser, but
yeah,
we can go back and forth because I agree. It's going to be fascinating on what they end up doing here, just with
yeah,
how little draft capital that they have, but they need a QB and they're not in a good position at all.
yeah,
So, but in this, we did include trades in this mock draft, and so that's why. But we couldn't come up with this scenario where because obviously we can't agree on what the Vikings should do with this pick. So we actually had them staying put on both the 11th and 23rd pick. So here, the 23rd pick, we did have
yeah,
to go with Troy Fatanu. If you go get that rookie quarterback, I think there's an area also too where the Vikings need to improve on is on the interior, especially the two when it comes to running the ball. They're one of the worst running teams in the league last year, partly just because they did move on from Dalvin Cook, but also then too as well, they didn't really have an offensive line that supported a good running offense. And so when you have a rookie quarterback coming in, or if you have Sam Darnold being the starting quarterback, you're going to want to have a good offensive line and a good running game, but you don't want either of them throwing the ball that much. So get a guy like Troy Fatanu here as well, a guy that's extremely versatile, can, in theory, play all 5 positions on the offensive line, had a great career over at Washington. So we thought that they just go the full national championship route, get a guy from Michigan and a guy from Washington. So, but a lot of different routes I think that they can go with this 23rd overall pick here. And so, what are your overall thoughts, kind of on this selection? What are some other routes you think that they can go?
yeah. So on this pick specifically, I do really like Troy Fatanu. Very versatile offensive lineman. What his big question was going to be, does he have the arm length to play tackle at the NFL level? And he has 34-inch arms, which clears that 33-inch threshold. And so he definitely can. I do think maybe he kicks into guard, especially they did just sign Dan Quisenberry, and then they also have Christian Darrisaw as well. And I believe it was Dan Quisenberry. Yeah, or David Quisenberry. Sorry, David
Yeah, his
Quisenberry.
brother. Yeah,
Yeah, his brother. And so like I think Troy Fatanu, he'll find a starting spot on that offensive line somewhere. It's probably just going to be on the interior, and then maybe if there's an injury or they decide not to re-sign Christian Darrisaw or David Quisenberry for some reason when their contract expires, maybe then that's when Troy Fatanu kicks back out to tackle. But he has the play strength, he has the athleticism that you really want in an offensive lineman. I do think they could potentially go on a defensive route, here. This was one. So I had this. I don't want to say it was an epiphany because it wasn't life altering, but I had this realization. I think you look at some of their free agent signings. Jerry Tillery is a slightly undersized defensive tackle. They have Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel, who are outside linebackers. They're not traditional edge rushers. I think they're probably switching to a 3-4 system with 2 outside linebackers. Rather than having 4 down linemen like with a Daniil Hunter.
yeah,
Then that would allow Brian Flores to be more aggressive with blitz, but he's lining up with more guys in the line of scrimmage, so he's not starting with middle linebackers or anything that far off the line of scrimmage, and that would give him better matchups. So I actually think this could be a sneaky T'Vondre Sweat spot if they really like him there. Maybe not at 23, but if they want to go get that huge nose tackle to be the run stuffer and push running backs out wide to their more athletic players, that would be, I think, a really good fit here for them as well. And then also, if one of the other defensive tackles falls to them, like Jerson Newton or Byron Murphy, I think that would be another interesting one here as well.
that's an interesting take, just because Vikings were, I think they blitzed over half the time
Yeah.
last year, and I think a lot of it was just because I think that on paper that defense wasn't really that great. So I think Brian Flores had the mentality of like, we're just going to get to you before you can throw the ball.
Yeah,
Which
he basically said we can't cover for more than 2.5 seconds, so we have to get you to not be able to throw the ball in 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, so we had to get to you in 2.4 seconds.
Yeah.
And to your point, though, they're getting guys like that, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Ringinkle, Jerry Tillery as well. Sorry. The guys that are very quick, very powerful, and those short bursts, and that will allow them to drop back 7 potentially. You know, if they only want to rush 4 and maybe disguise some blitzes, so it will be very unique. A lot of different ways they can go here. It's fascinating. For only 2 picks, there's so many different avenues. I feel like, or so many different scenarios that the Vikings could have in this 2024 NFL draft on the first round.
And I ultimately do think so. If they don't trade up for a quarterback, I could see them maybe going Bo Nix as well here at 11. Everybody knows Denver's interested in Bo Nix, but they don't quite have the draft capital to really move up any significant amount for a quarterback. So they're probably stuck there at 12. So if Minnesota does like Bo Nix, they could go that route. I do think, again, JJ McCarthy, they'll probably have to trade up for him. So obviously, if you think that's a guy that you could see winning a Super Bowl, no price is too much. But obviously, you don't want to mortgage too much of your future because you never know what future quarterback classes are going to hold and what position you'll be in next year. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of this Minnesota Vikings 3-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you do differently than that? We'll see you guys next time.